What's going on, guys? It's Mike from BavhausTV, and today we're going to show you how to replace your right front window regulator on an e46 sedan. So Uroparts was cool enough to send us a front right window regulator for this e46. This is off of their premium line, which indicates that this part is upgraded and exceeds the OE manufacturer part. The e46 has some faulty window regulators. This has been an issue with them pretty much since they came out. The seals in the doors start to go bad and put tension on the cables, and various plastic components within the regulator start to break. Within your ownership of having an e46, you will more than likely run into a failing window regulator, especially on a sedan. There's 4 of them, so you're probably going to hear one going bad or have one fully fail within the ownership of your vehicle. So this is the part that they sent us to film a video, and basically, it's a lot like other window regulators, except it's upgraded, has an upgraded ball bearing pulley system, which is unique to the Uroparts unit here. One thing that I want to mention is that they have this tip sheet that tells you just to check everything and lubricate it prior to installing this. If you just install this blindly, it may fail, and it's not because it's a faulty part, it's because you didn't do the proper things prior to installing that. So we're going to show you what we do to make sure that this new part works properly the first time. So there's multiple components that make the window go down, and if you guys don't really know what's going on here, if you go and press that button, there's multiple things that can be failed if the window doesn't go down. The first being that if there's an electronic issue, being that it's a module or a fuse or the switch itself, you might not even be getting any power there. So you first want to diagnose if it's the window regulator that failed or something electrical leading up to the motor. If the motor itself has failed, you can diagnose that by removing the door panel and putting power directly to it. Otherwise, you're going to have to diagnose back towards the switch and the module and figure out what might be going on there. When a regulator fails, you can still hear the motor. So if you go and you press the button to make the window go down and you hear a grinding sound coming from the door that you're trying to actuate the window in, that's how you indicate that everything electronically is right, but you have a mechanical failure. A mechanical failure in this case is always the window regulator. Very infrequently we see motors that have broken teeth on them. One way to know is if your window is still going down but you hear a grinding noise like we're about to show you, that's a failing window regulator. It still works the window, but you want to get to it before it breaks the window regulator entirely and leaves your window stuck in a position you don't want it in, or even worse, damages the window physically or shatters it. So we're going to show you next what that sounds like. So you can hear when you put the window down, there's a grinding noise, and you can see some tension build up on the window where it goes down fast and then slows down, and then vice versa when the window goes back up. So that tension is probably a cable that is either ripped through one of the pulleys, or there's little plastic brackets that break and then the tension is off on the system itself. So sounds like we have an issue with the front side of this regulator, and whenever there's any issue with the regulator, the correct procedure is to replace it. Trying to fix it, there's some zip tie tricks that we've used in the past. They'll still continue to have the incorrect tension. It will operate the window, but it doesn't do it properly. So we're going to show you guys next how to remove the door panel and actually replace this window regulator. So before we start on the door card, we want to just show you guys the few things to make note of before starting this. You have this trim panel here, which has a couple screws underneath it. You have the door handle here, which is going to have to be removed to fully remove the door card off of the car. We'll show you that once the door card is half removed. Up here you have your door lock indicator for the actuator, so you're going to have to pull the door panel over that. Underneath here you have these 2 plastic covers. You have screws behind them. It's really easy to miss those and start going after everything and tugging, and we've seen these ripped off a lot. You have the 2 speakers, obviously. Those are just electrical connections from the back, need to be removed. You have this dummy cover here, needs to be pulled up. There's a screw in there, and beyond that you have an airbag here. So the issue with the airbag is if you disconnect the airbag while the battery is plugged in, you can cause some issues between a voltage surge that might ignite the airbag. It's really unlikely, but it's kind of one of the things we're taught as automotive technicians, to never touch an airbag with the battery plugged in. And then the second part of that is if you remove it while working on the car with the battery plugged in, you're going to have a code. So the light on the dashboard for the airbag is going to probably be there when you go to put things back together, even if you get away with it not detonating on you. So we'll figure out what we're going to do there. The reason you want to leave the battery plugged in is because the window has to be in a certain position to even remove it, or remove the regulator, that is. So you kind of need power at the same time of wanting it unplugged. So it is a little bit of a juggle there. We'll show you guys some other options if if your window's stuck on how to remove it without the battery. But before we do anything, let's pop this cover off, and this cover off, and we'll get started. So we're gonna start with some trim pullers. We'll link a kit for these if you don't have them in the description below. It just basically allows you to push on this tab here and remove this clip without breaking it and without damaging the leather. After that, we're gonna remove this cover. I like to use a pen light screwdriver for this. You can mar this up if you use a larger screwdriver, so the pen light is definitely vital here. Next, we're gonna get our trim tool again, go right on the back of this piece of trim, and keep it level. I like to kind of like put my hand against it so we're not bending this trim, because these have the tendency to snap. So you want to kind of push against it as you pop clips out. These are barbed clips. I'll show you in a second what that means. And then once you get to this point, it actually sits underneath this door handle. So you're gonna pull it out like that, as there's two tabs here that go in here. As you can see, these are barbed clips. So there's basically a spring in this component here that just grabs it, and some tension is what actually relieves it. So you can see here, this one is broken. This is common for this. So what we'll do is in the description below, we'll include part numbers for these little clips there. So next we're gonna remove the 5 screws we just revealed. So we're gonna start up here. These are 2 T20s. Down here, there's another T20. It sits a little deep, so we're gonna just use a deep socket T20. You can leave that one in for now. Just remember to catch it when you remove the door panel. Otherwise, just use a magnet. Next, we have these two. We're gonna take our T20, put it in, using deep socket again. Look at the angle that we're removing it at. That's where you'll find the bolt. They're in there a little deep, so it's not really easy to see without a light. Again, you can go recover those after. Once you have all 5 of the screws removed, you can get a trim tool behind the door card. Easiest to start up here, and start walking the tool down. You start hearing some of these clips pop out. You want to be very gentle with this. Just pull enough to pop a clip and then move around a little bit. The e46 door card's a little bit more stout than the e36, but still use the same kind of clips, and they do have a tendency to break. We'll include the clips in the description below as well. You just want to go all the way around the door. All right, saw one of those screws just fell, so now we have to recover 2 more. Once you have it off, just make sure it's fully off, and we're gonna pull it out from behind the speaker cover there, and then go straight up. Okay, so at this point, oh, you probably saw how that just came out. This sits under there and like this, so what you wanna do is take this, pull it up and out, and that disconnects your door lock actuator. You have your speakers. That one just pulls straight out. This one you pinch these 2 tabs in like this and pull out. So the back of the door card has 10 of these clips, and you'll notice that some of them have this rubber insulator on them. That's just to stop some noise from the door card kind of wobbling while the car's on the road. So if those are missing, it's not exactly vital, but they should be there. You can see there's some missing here and here and up here. But these clips have the tendency to break. So what I like to do is kind of go around and push on them and make sure that they are still fully connected. Sometimes 1 or 2 of these will be broken and they'll look like they're working, but they're not perfect. In this case, we removed it properly, so they're all good. But again, we'll link these below. You can now set the door card aside. So once you have the door card off, you'll notice that there's these 5 clips across the top molding here. And as you're pulling the door card off, you might have saw us kind of struggle with it a little bit, because I actually forgot about this myself. You want to pull the door card over this piece here, but it also needs to come off. These clips sit physically inside a plastic rail on the door card. So that's one more step, is kind of lifting it out from underneath the speaker, off of this trim and over this, and then that's how you fully remove it. Other than that, the only other thing that was missed, just because it wasn't physically attached on our card, is this clip that holds the speaker harness in place. All you want to do is just take a set of clip pullers, put it underneath, and pull this clip off. If your door is proper and not really messed with, then that would be still connected. Try not to damage it. It's not vital, as it sits outside of the insulation, so it's not ever going to get caught in the window regulator. But if for some reason you're missing this, then this clip has to definitely be still attached to your door card. Ideally, everything's perfect, but these cars are getting up there in age and you can't find them perfect anymore. Next thing we're gonna do is remove this insulation here. If you look, the airbag actually sits with these 3 10mm screws on the outside of this insulation. So the sound deadener insulation here needs to be removed, obviously, to get to the window regulator. So we're gonna start by removing the airbag physically, just not touching the wiring for it at all. All right, 3 10mm. So that's the plug for it. it is clipped into place, and you can probably get away with letting it hang. Again, just don't go yanking on it or anything, but if you unplug that for any reason, there is a chance that you'll have an airbag light on, or in some cases, there's hearsay that it'll detonate. I've never seen it happen, never heard of it happening, but one of those things, again, you kind of just learn about. So next you gotta get the door sound deadener off, and it is pretty miserable. You'll see these ripped a lot of the times. Sometimes they come off super easy, sometimes they're a pain. So just find a spot and start going after it. It's connected with butyl tape, and it can be a mess. So when it gets really difficult, what I like to do is go with a blade, and I'll actually just cut through the butyl tape. You're not cutting into the liner at all, but just the tape to help get it off in one piece. So you can see here the butyl tape is starting to stretch, so it's not really coming off the way I want it to. So I'll just pull on the sound deadening material and just guide the butyl tape off. It's the best way to not make a mess or rip the sound deadening. So if it ever rips, what you want to do is just cut back into the butyl and you'll stop the rip. If you keep pulling on it, you're going to end up ripping the material. Alright, so the airbag sits in this slot here. Just remember that for when you go to reinstall. You want to get it over. And then the second slot has the cable for the door lock actuator. Just going to push everything over here. Again, settle the airbag down so it sits freely. You could leave it on like that. I'm somebody who likes to clear my workspace, so I'm just gonna go fully remove it. Cool. And as you see, it's not a mess, and you can just take this, put it right back on, and you know, it's in as good a shape as it was when it was on the car prior. The one thing about this butyl tape is obviously sticky. Go put this somewhere safe where it doesn't touch any contaminants, because then it's not gonna stick well when you go to put it back on. So your window regulator assembly is this piece here and this piece here, and some cables going back and forth that are attached to the window directly. This is the motor. So if you want to test the motor for any reason, you can see it's a 2-pin connection. You would just undo this connector like so, and then just put 2 wires or cut a connector from a spare car or whatever option you have, power probe, and put power directly to this motor. It's a 2-way motor, so you can power and ground, and you'll figure out if the window's going up or down depending. Just quickly check, then swap accordingly if you need to. That's how you can roll out a motor. In this case, we heard the motor already working, so we're completely fine to just leave things as they are. You have 3 screws here to remove the motor, and then you move it over to physically remove it. So if you need to remove the motor, you can do it in car like that. At least I think you can. You might have to move the harness. Other than that, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 10mm connections to actually hold the window regulator in place, and then 2 mounts directly to the window that need to be brought to a specific location to remove the window from the regulator. So it's kind of a mouthful there, but we'll show you guys as we go. The first thing you're going to want to do is set the window in the correct position. Now, if you have a dead motor, you have to remove the motor first and then manually move the window. It will kind of work. You just want to push down on it and get the window in the right position. But doing it with the motor in place, you're going to be physically fighting this motor. Even if it's dead, it's still there. So you want to get that out. Since we are in a position where our window regulator is failing and not yet failed, we're going to put the key in the ignition and just lower the window. We're going to show you guys with one spot here. There's another one over here that you want to keep an eye on, but for the sake of the video, we'll show you guys right when that lines up. So now that we have everything lined up, we're going to take an 8mm, put it into this sight hole, and you can hear it jumping. That's because they have a very short head on this 8mm, and you need to put pressure against the door, and then you can hear it remove nicely. But if you're not applying a lot of pressure, it'll start stripping it. And you can see I switched from the impact to a wrench for that reason. If I just went with an impact and I didn't have the right pressure, I'd make this unremovable. So feel it out, do it by hand, and you'll prevent yourself from causing any problems. I like to push them out, but in that case, I think it fell into the regulator, so we'll get it out when it comes out later. The second one is a lot more accessible. It's right over here now. You can just go right here, and again, push into the door. So we had this one jump on us a little bit more than we wanted to. So I switched to a 3/8, so hopefully you can get a little bit more force on it. 3/8 ratchet, but I still stepped it down a 1/4 inch. Yeah, and it comes right out. So a couple different methods on how to remove them already shown, but overall they are a pain. So now at this point, the window is actually separated from the regulator. So you can just go in and guide the window back up by hand. and just make sure it sits in the groove as you pull it up. And then you can kind of just wedge it into the top spot. Wiggle the door, make sure it's not gonna fall, but you should be good. Now we can go and remove those 5 10mm that I was talking about earlier. You can see the little guide holes here. So we're just gonna push the bottom one out like this. And then the top one is gonna slide down. And then as you slide it down, you can slide it in towards the center of the car. Once you kind of get that past there, if you want, just for the sake of being comfortable here, you could just screw the airbag back up. It's gonna be in your way as you remove the regulator. So here we're just gonna keep it out of our way for a bit. If you look right here, this is one of the cables. Kind of put the airbag up in the way of that, but that's zip tied in place. You're gonna wanna cut this zip tie and then replace it later. This is a place where this cable actually comes behind here and connects to the motor. So a set of side cuts and just snip that right there. Take it out so it doesn't make a mess in your door. And then you'll notice as you cut that, you can remove half of the regulator like this and create more room. So over here you have this screw here that needs to get popped in. You have this one here, pop it in. Again, we plug this back in to operate the motor, but disconnect your electrical connection for the motor. This one up top is gonna kind of give you some issues, but you kind of wiggle in and out. Oh, almost forgot, right here we have, same way we had a zip tie up here. Over here you actually have a clip for the other cable. Sometimes you can just use a socket to pinch through. That's what the clip looks like. And then you can fully remove your window regulator and motor assembly. So if you're anything like us, you want to figure out why this unit failed and help prevent the new one from running into the same issue. So a good thing to do is check the bottom of the door on the inside where the regulator sits, and you'll find some pieces. Here we have a white piece and a brown piece. So it looks like one of these plastic corners and then one of these plastic rails. Now these plastic rails are usually what fails, and it's probably what's making the noise here. So if you look right there, this piece is supposed to be locked into this guide right here. And if you look, the guide just fell right apart. That spot right there is where this piece is supposed to be sitting. So if you look and you see all that marring up and down here, that grinding noise that we were hearing at the beginning of the video is this piece dragging across the window regulator frame rather than sitting in its guide as it moves up and down. So this piece is not operating. If you look right there, this is where they always fail. And this is where some people will take a zip tie and kind of recreate this housing that this little piece is supposed to sit in, but it doesn't really work out that well. If you're looking for a way to just get to next week and you don't mind pulling a regulator out, then it is okay to just take a zip tie, hold it there, make sure this is sitting in its guide like that, and you can get away with it. But what happens is the tension pulls it out and then it no longer works. So that's how that one failed. Usually if it's one, it's both. Oh, actually this one's still good. So you can see how it's supposed to look, and here's how the one on that side looks. So now that we verified the failure within the window regulator, we're gonna remove the motor, which we know is good. It's a T30, and there's 3 of them. What you're gonna do now to remove this motor from the regulator is push it away from you, or towards you, depending on where you're sitting, so it clears these tabs here, here, and here, and then kind of lift and wiggle it up. And actually these do have plastic gear sets, so there is a possibility that this gear does get damaged. So if you hear the motor spinning and nothing's happening, be sure to check out this gear set here and this gear set here. In our case, everything looks good here. We can take our old window regulator, put it aside. We're gonna grab our new Uroparts upgraded premium window regulator assembly. You can see it definitely has a lot more going on here. They did lubricate it at the factory, so I'm not going to put it on the ground. We'll do this on the box, but you can see there's a lot more insulation on the cables. So they have the tip sheet here, again, comes with the window regulator, and it pretty much just tells you to make sure everything's clean and lubricated when you install. So one thing I'm seeing here is that there isn't any grease here, and sometimes this grease is supposed to be self-lubricating, kind of runs out, which here it looks like it's a little dead and dry. So we'll just take a little dab of grease and put it on the gears here so that we don't create any issues here. So I'm going to take some grease, just put it on the gears. You don't really have to go too far out with it because it's going to throw out anything it doesn't need and shove it to the side like it did there. And then as for the gears, they'll kind of self-lubricate as this operates. It helps if you lubricate the center shaft on it as well. And as you go and put it into the regulator itself, you want to line it up in the position where it was prior. So you have these 2 screw holes here, and then these 2 wings up top. That's how you line it up. The third one is down here, and you push it through. On the back, you'll see that centering shaft kind of start to pop through, and you just want to wiggle it through as you push on it. Once you get it in the position where it's about to come fully in, you might want to push on the specific spots, rotate it into position, and once you got it in a position, you can put your screws back in. Okay. Start with this one. Kind of guide in these guide holes into their correct position as you screw it in. Saw how it bent at the end? That's kind of positioning it properly on the motor. So just like that, we're completely reassembled and ready to go reinstall. So now back at the door, you can see the inner seal here. This is the window seal that goes all the way around the car, like here, and then back down here. And overall the door is clean. Obviously it's still 20 plus years old. So we do want to just put a little bit of silicone lubricant back into those door seals to kind of give them a little bit more life. And what you want to do is just get the silicone, go into the seal, and just spray it through until you see it dripping down. And on the other side, that is not the case, it just ends up top. And then what I like to do after that is take the window, we're going to drop it back down. Okay, leave it down there for now. And go spray those window seals on the outside. You can physically see these. If you're in a spot where winter gets these cars pretty good, when these windows freeze up, that's when most of this regulator damage happens. It's just gonna make it a little bit more difficult for you to have the window held up right there. How it was sitting up was because of the tension. This silicone is gonna relieve some of that tension, so it might make reinstallation a little bit more difficult, but it's better for the regulator in the long run. Get in the corners, especially like right here. And then if you want to do this section too. All right, now we're gonna grab a rag, spread it out, clean it up, and then we can start reinstalling. All right, so as you can see, that silicone cleaned and lubricated, so it did exactly what we needed to do. Ours was luckily not that dirty. You don't want it sopping wet with silicone, so that's why we sprayed it on first and then removed it after the fact. So if you put your window all the way down, you'll notice that it pops out of the window seal groove inside the door. And if you just go start pushing it up, it's more than likely that you're gonna bind it. So you want to lift it in a way where you put it right back into that seal, like so. And verify that once you have that in position, you can start putting your window up. You can see the silicone on the window now. I'm gonna do a couple up-down cycles after to clean that silicone off the glass. It's where it needs to be. And now we're just gonna push it up into the corners as much as we physically can, just to hope it sticks. Give it a shake. Yeah, it's not coming down. Cool. So now we can go get our window regulator and reinstall. So now for reinstallation, you're gonna need a new zip tie and you're gonna need this clip. So we're gonna pop this clip off of the old window regulator. You see we have them positioned in the exact same way. So we know to just take this, put it back over here like that. And now we're ready to go put it in. So to reinstall, it's gonna be the reverse of removal. So start with the motor, get it into the door. And now we're just trying to line up all those studs. First one I want to get is this bottom one, like that. Second one is going to be this one because it's fixed. Hang it up on something up top. All right, it was actually hanging up on the glass up top, so you want to be behind the glass. Okay, so I'm actually fitting that one first, just to make sure it's not hitting the window, and then we can line up the other two. Once you got them all in place, just to hold it in place while you screw around with the other side, put your nuts on loosely by hand. Then we're going to take the other side, going to put it back in. You can remove our airbag. let it hang back down below again. See, our window just dropped a little bit, showing the silicone is working, so verification of our good job on protecting the new window regulator. So just being gentle now that we know the window's coming down. Gonna line that one up, put a nut on it very loosely. Get the second one in place down here. Nut on that one as well. Now we're gonna find the clip and get it into place. Pop it through, like so. Zip tie for this one. Cut the tail. Plug the motor back in. Next, we're gonna bring the window back down. We're gonna be supporting it. You're gonna be looking for that tab that connects the window to the regulator, and we're going through this sight hole. So right there you can see that red tab and the hole that goes straight through, right about there. Here's the screws that I was talking about. You can see they have a very shallow head on them, so that's what makes them so difficult to remove, especially when somebody in the past has gone and ripped them with an impact, but they're very difficult to grip. So the regulator is actually not in the proper position, so what I need to do is push the window back up, and we need to move the motor around a little bit. So let me make sure this is nice and tight. Now watch, you'll see the bracket, that same bracket that was broken on the other regulator. We're gonna line it up into that spot. And at some point, it'll be right in the center, like right about there. Yeah, so you can see right here where my finger is, that's the spot where the screw goes. And now you bring the window back down, and you line those two pieces up. So right about there. Kind of catches the window so you don't really have to hold it anymore. And here's the hardest part of this whole thing. You gotta get that screw in. So what we do is we take a little bit of this butyl tape off the side of the door, stick it on the head, then you put your 8mm on it, and now you're not losing it. I put my finger behind. There's an encapsulated nut in the back of the window. It sits in the plastic connector on the window glass itself, and you just want to feel the bolt go through there. We're gonna do the same thing on this side. It should be lined up now that you did the one. So again, grab a little bit of butyl off the door, sneak it past here. You guys should be able to see this way better on this side. So you can see the bracket and then that red piece of the window. It's like a window guide clip. It sits into the groove on the plastic guide of the regulator. They pop into place and you just hold it in with the... So that's what the nut looks like in the back. So if yours falls out, you just gotta go behind. It sits this way in towards the window. There's these barbs that are supposed to hold it in place. But in our case, it did not. You can find the spot where it goes. You can see I just pushed it back in. So you just grab it from behind, line it up. And again, I'm gonna push it from the back to make sure that I get some thread contact before we start screwing it in, because if you don't contact the thread, it's not gonna pull the nut forward. It's gonna just push it out of the back of the window. Now we can go and just do wrist tight. Again, using 1/4 inch for this. Just tight, and that's it. Remember, you're squeezing a piece of glass here, so don't go crazy, don't go with an impact. And go back to the first one, tighten it up. All right, and now what I like to do is operate the window. And I'm gonna see where everything kind of settles in. So like right there, the window's all the way up. And I'm gonna tighten these up a little bit, just with my hand. You can see the location of where the old window regulator sat. It was all the way up. I don't know if that's because of the position when the window's all the way down, but it looks like that was in the wrong position and it was pushing the window in, because it's not moving right now. It has the ability to. Let me back these all off a 1/4 turn, because these 3 are fixed and these 2 are adjustable. So I like to operate the window a few times, find the location that these kind of settle in, and that's the place I like to torque them down. So we'll go up one more time. And right there is where we're going to tighten these up, starting with the adjustable ones, setting significantly lower than the one we removed. Okay, again, just wrist tight, nothing too crazy. Oh, actually I said I'd do this one first, so let's do that. Okay. And then just crisscross back and forth for the rest of them. And now we're gonna go up and down with the window, make sure it sounds good. Yeah, I don't hear any resistance. I think that's perfect. So next we're gonna go back and put our insulating cover back on. After that, we can put our airbag back into place and start putting the door card back together. So now we're gonna reattach this. Again, we have two spots where our stuff goes. So the airbag goes through this one along with the speakers, and then this one is commonly covered up by people and they forget, and then your door won't work after because you out of sight, out of mind it. I'm gonna start reattaching this, try to match up all your holes so you're not making new ones. So that hole right there. We got this one right there. We got this one right there. Those are pretty lined up. So to kind of assist in the process, you can just stop right there and start doing your airbag. These look like they were paint marked at some point, probably at the dealer for a warranty repair or replacement. I'm not sure if the side bags were part of the Takata recall, but these things have all been recalled tons of times. This is also adjustable for some reason, depending on how it sits, maybe in the way it deploys on the door card, but I think maybe what we want to do here is just put them back in the same position. You can see the old marking from where the old screw went, and it was all the way up. So that's where we'll put it. That's probably why it was paint marked. All right, so we're all set there. We continue putting everything back together. That lines up. Just gonna go around that little screw retainer there. This goes into like a little hole there. All right, that's pretty much it. Let's go get our door card. All right, so remember to go back for your screws first. So we have this one in here, and the second one just fell off. Okay, so now we have all 5 of our screws again. So this is the plastic rail that has the clips that sit against the window guide. So up here, there, 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 and there. So when you just take it off, you just yank on it a little bit, it'll come right out. Other than that, we have this clip here, which is gonna sit in this spot on the door panel. Just a little hole that they have drilled into it, and we can put that in once we get up there. So I like to leave it out for now. We're gonna start by plugging in our speakers. You have 2 plugs for the speakers here. One's false and one's real. So make sure you put in the real one, like that. Next, we're going to put our door card up. Try to start lining up the holes mentally. Once you get to this position, you can take that speaker connector and clip it in place. Next, we're gonna reinstall our door handle actuator connector. So if you install it with the door handle open, like this, where it will clip into place, then your door handle won't work and you won't be able to open the door. So what you gotta do is close the door handle, keep your hand behind it like this, and then engage the door handle. So now when you pull it, you can hear the actuator working, and it returns to the spot that it's supposed to be in. Can't tell you how many times I've seen people put these back together. You finish up the whole door and then realize the door handle doesn't work. So now we can start lining up our clips. You want to just put this door latch actuator indicator over like that, and then you can start squeezing these back into place. It's good to get these done first because they're kind of the guide. Then just visually go, make sure all your other clips are lined up properly. Might have to kind of tug or push or pull on the door card. Just feel it out first, and don't go hammering on this or going crazy with the type of hits because you could break those clips really easily. So I just do a soft palm hit, and then that's how I know everything is locked into place properly. Do it once over, and you're good. All right, so now that we have the door panel back on, we're going to take our long screw and reinsert it up here. This one has a long plastic receiver, which is different than the other 4, which have a metal receiver. So that's how you know this one goes here. On the e46, the long screw goes in here, so it's easily confusable to put that long one there. Instead, we're going to install it up here on the e46. I'm pretty sure even if you look at the real OEM diagram, it looks like the long one goes here. But then they mentioned that there's 8 of the small ones total, so it makes things a little confusing. So as long as you pay attention to that plastic receiver being here, this coarse thread long, I think it's like a 32 millimeter or 36 millimeter screw, goes into that plastic one. And we're just gonna go wrist tight. You don't wanna go too tight as to damage the leather. Next, we're gonna take one of the short ones and install it back here. Wrist tight. another short one, just guide it in through here. Next short one down underneath the grab handle. You want to just be gentle with these and guide them in. If you need to wiggle it into place, just use the socket itself to guide it into place. You don't want to pull out and let it drop, because then you're gonna have to go fishing for it, and they're difficult to get with the door card on. So just gently guide it in. And again, wrist tight. Now we can take the trim and we're gonna reinstall these 4 clips. Obviously this one's broken. Again, we'll leave a link for these below, but you have these 2 tabs here that are gonna go underneath the handle like this. And then we're going to just pop it back into place like that. Then you have this cover. You're just gonna put it down into place and pop it in. And then lastly, you have your 2 covers here, which have these barbs on them. The barb side is gonna go in the door panel first, and then you have the clip that actually holds it in place. We'll start with this one to show you guys. So the barb is in, and then you just clip the clip side in. Do it again for you here. And you're all set. So you guys heard the window regulator when we first started this video, how loud and crunchy it was. So we'll probably just insert another clip of that right here. And this is the result after. It's completely like night and day, dead silent, and luckily we were able to grab this Uroparts Premium window regulator for the E46 prior to it completely failing. Last thing we want to do is just do a couple switch cycles of pulling this window up and down, cleaning up any of the silicone residue that made its way onto the window, clean up any fingerprints from grease on the window. And once you got it all nice and clean, do it again, because if it's getting on one way, it's probably going to happen more than once. And stop halfway, clean up the seal and the sealing point. All right, it looks like we have it clean. So that's how easy it is to replace a passenger front window regulator on an E46 sedan. It's not too difficult. You just have to pay attention to a couple things, make sure everything's clean and tidy, and it should be a pretty easy job. I think we got this done in an hour, and that is including obviously filming this as we do it. Huge shout out to Uroparts for sending us this part. We're gonna show you guys a frame here of the part number from Uroparts, as well as the original part number. This is their premium part, so it is an upgrade on the original. So thanks again for sending us this. If you guys are looking to replace your window regulators, don't go cheap. Definitely go with a better than factory component on this. Factory has proven to not be up to par, so an improvement is definitely good for the future of your E46. The best part about this specific unit from Uroparts is that it has upgraded pulleys, it's got ball bearing technology, it also self-lubricates, and as long as you do exactly as we showed in the video, where you clean it, you lubricate it, you make sure that this thing is going to operate properly, it should last you a really long time, if not forever. But beyond that, Uroparts offers a limited lifetime, unlimited mileage guarantee on all their premium parts. So it's a win-win in this situation. Just follow our steps and this thing will literally last you forever. As always, thanks for watching BavhausTV. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the description below. Be sure to check out our channel. We have tons of videos not only on the E46, but on tons of BMWs and even some Audis and some other stuff. We're getting pretty up there with our video quantity. So we'll also link all the parts we used, some of the other parts that we didn't use that you might need in the description below, and we'll throw in any tools. This one doesn't really have any torque specs, so we're gonna leave that out of this video. Right after this video, we're gonna move on and do the driver's side. It's gonna be the same video, but just might help out other people. So we're gonna get into that. If you guys are interested in that video, check out the description below. It's gonna be very similar, but slight differences, but we're gonna go get started on that.